Hello and welcome everyone to today's Q&A session on graduate programs in the US. Before we begin the session, I just want to let you all know that this session is being recorded. So if you are comfortable in being in the recording, you can keep your videos on and you can raise your hand and ask your question. If you're not comfortable, then you can put your question in chat or you can send it as a DM to either me or any of the two speakers. Um, so with that, I'll just introduce the speakers very quickly. We have with us Sarah, who you would have seen in our workshop on PhD applications for social science. Sarah is doing a PhD at University of Michigan. And we have with us Lokesh, who did his LLM from American University and is currently doing a PhD at Sciences Po in Paris. We were supposed to have Daksh join us as well, who did an MPP, who is doing an MPP at Howard, but due to some personal circumstances, he's not able to join us. But if there's any questions that you have specifically for the MPP program in the US, we've already done a workshop on MPP programs generally, and Daksh was one of the speakers. So I'd recommend that you have a look at the video, and maybe some of your questions will be addressed there. But if not, then you can reach out to us and I'll let you know how towards the end of the session. With that, we can begin. As I said, this is a Q&A session. This is not going to be we won't have any presentation. We'll just directly begin with whatever questions you may have about applications to the US. Yeah, thanks, Sarah and Lokesh, for joining us. And yeah, everyone, you can ask your questions. So you can either raise your hand and directly ask your question when called on to do so, or you can put your questions in chat. While people are thinking and getting comfortable. Just a reminder that we upload all of the recordings of our public workshops on our YouTube channel, and we've done a bunch. We've done a bunch of workshops on different course applications and PhD applications. We've actually also done workshops on different PhD applications based on streams, and we had speakers from different countries join, which was helpful to understand what applications look like across countries. And I'm just sending a link to our YouTube page. Okay, I see that we have a few questions in chat and a raised hand. So first question is, what does the timeline for doctoral applications in the US look like? So Sarah.
Yeah. Usually the deadlines are they begin from December 1. For most of the universities, December 15 or January 1st. So an ideal timeline would be by August, you should have shortlisted the universities that you want to apply and reach out to your potential supervisors and start working on your statement of purpose, because it takes time with multiple revisions. So yeah, I would say like have your statement of purpose ready a month in advance before applying. So you should be done with it by last week of October or first week of November. You also need a writing sample. So yeah, you need to like schedule it according to the timeline, which is usually December 1, December 15th, or the first week of January. Like very handful of universities have their deadlines. So the preparation time would be from late August till the last week of November. I hope that helps.
Great. Noman, do you want to ask your question?
Thank you for the session, ma'am. So I have actually applied for PhD biomedical science. So I have not got any positive response so far. I'm still waiting for applications, but I'm also considering applying for MS programs with PhD programs. So I have one question. Like in programs, some programs in US, I'm applying for biomedical science, and in those the programs are like individualized MS program, but they haven't properly mentioned that how a student can fund that sort of a program. So like if I apply to a specific faculty to get a TA, will that help me in funding my master's there in that particular university?
And Lokesh, do you want to take that perhaps just on funding master's programs?
Yeah. Like if a professor is ready to take me as a research assistant or as a teaching assistant, will I be able to fund my masters with that position?
Yes, the funding masters can involve two kind of fundings. What first is for your tuition fee, and second can be your living expenses. For tuition fee, I think it will not be possible. Uh, like going by TA. Otherwise, you are paid very highly and you can save some money. Otherwise, normally, like I was based in Washington DC, and the minimum wage is 16 or something. So I think it is not possible to fund your tuition fee, but yes, it is possible to fund your living expenses monthly. Again, depending upon your own expenses monthly. But I think, and also it depends upon which city you live in the US. But yes, with your RSA position or your TSA position, you can still pay your living expenses monthly, and you can pay the expenses.
So, like in the university website, they had mentioned that if so, they had given a list of professors who are ready to take students for MS. So, once you enroll, so it's a 3-year program. So, 6 months is coursework, and then rest you have to do research. So, what they have mentioned is that so there are some credits that you have to complete, and for the credits you have to pay the course fee. And after that, if you are getting in, so I'm not actually sure that how much fee I have to pay, because it's not mentioned there. It's mentioned there that if you are getting a TA, you will be able to fund your studies.
Mm,
It's MD
I
Anderson Cancer Center in Houston.
That may be very like question about the university, and I may not be able to answer the question of the tuition fees. But generally, the university program, they also have specific funding for specific research things. So, for example, even with the same, like even if, for example, I'm speaking about law itself. So even if like I was doing my LLM in intellectual property rights, but still I could work with some, like say let's say some technology based work or some work on arbitration, if because normally, because in a university they have a lot of centers, and some centers have their own funding. So even with the, for example, even if you go with for A course, and if you see a B course which is kind of coinciding with A course, then I think like it is possible for you to to have RSA position. But again, speaking about the funding, you have to ask the university specifically, and I think they should get back to you as soon as possible for the funding.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have actually emailed them and I'm waiting for their reply. So yeah, because I was really confused with how it was supposed to happen, because I had applied in the same university for PhD program, but I didn't get a positive response. So now I was thinking of considering for MS. So there are 3 different types of programs. This is an individualized MS program, and where they had given that you can fund your studies with the TA, as the professor who's going to take you is going to pay you like.
Yeah, it is possible because I saw something similar for, I think, Harvard's PhD application for law specifically. And so your tuition fee can also be waived once you get admission, and then there'll be monthly things like monthly expenses. So yes, this can be like this can be one of the options where they pay your tuition fee the moment you get accepted in the course, and then you get monthly stipend, the way we have we get in the context of PhD. So yeah, it can be one of the ways.
Yeah, actually, a faculty there I had written to one faculty during my PhD application. So he had replied positively that yeah, he's interested in my profile, but he had told that if I'm able to go through the admission, like if my application goes into the interview, then he can have some impact. But since my application didn't reach the interview stage, so then I didn't. So I mentioned to him that if this is the case, so he told me either apply next year or you can consider other options.
Yeah, I think usually in the US, because PhD applications are funded already, you don't have to find external funding, which is why probably he said that once you reach the interview, which is when he'll be able to intervene. But as Lokesh said, I'd also suggest you email them and ask them what the expense looks like for the credit courses that you have to do, and if the TA shape or any stipend that they give you would be able to cover that. I think it's fairly specific to the program that you're doing and to the university, so they'll be in the best position to respond.
Yes, ma'am. It's differently structured, something different because it's a 3-year MS program. So it's something structured very differently. I had one more question that so in one of the other universities I applied for PhD. So there a faculty I had mailed. So I had chosen him for my interview. Like they had mentioned that which faculty you want to have in your interview, or whom you are interested to work under if you get after your first year of study. So I had selected this professor. Now I mailed him a few days back, and he replied that he'll discuss with me further. So, but like he didn't give any timeline for the interview, but he said that discussion will be done during the interview. But I didn't get any. But my application on the portal still shows in review. So should I consider like it as a positive response and chances of getting an interview?
I'll answer that question. I think you should be a little patient because it the first round of acceptances or interview mails go in the last week of January, and then there are multiple rounds depending on how many people accept it or don't. So please be patient because they're still processing. There's a committee that sits, and no individual professor will be in a position to determine whether your application will get accepted or not. So I'll just say give him some more time and wait uh, for an answer. I'm pretty sure it is being reviewed by the committee.
Great. If that's it, Noman, I'll move on to the other question.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Actually, I felt the same thing because of three rejections that I got. I got them in the first week of Jan only. So I felt like, yeah, I think if they are going to give offers, it might come later in the
No,
month.
no. For PhD, they take some time, and usually the acceptance, like all acceptances have to be like they need to give a decision by April 14. So for all the applications, so PhD takes more time than masters, and it follows a slightly different timeline as well. So don't worry.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So the next question is, by what time and which English test should we get done with respect to US applications? So if there's a preferred timeline, and which English test would you suggest?
I went for IELTS exam, and but some universities, specifically in law, if you can if you can submit a document saying that your previous studies was in law, they normally exam you for the same. And otherwise, it is advisable generally to either go for TOEFL or IELTS. Like both normally work, but I think IELTS normally take some time, like I think 40-15 days, and they also and I think like it also depends on where you're located, and then you get your center for the exam. So, for example, I was based in a city in Jodhpur, like near Jodhpur, so it was difficult for me to find a place. So I had to do it like early. So they like depends upon the location and then like where are your applications. So at least go for 1 or 2 months before that, so that you have an idea of the same.
Yeah, I gave IELTS, but I gave TOEFL, and usually universities specify, like they'll give you the option to even go for IELTS or TOEFL, or many a times they specify which particular English exam they want you to take, and 1 month in advance is like an ideal time. I was based in Delhi, so even though it's said that they'll take 14 days at least, but the results were out within 5 days, and they sent it on time, but yeah, like a month in advance would be an ideal timeline.
Yes, and I've also plugged the link to the workshop that we did specifically on English language tests, and I think it might be helpful if you have a look at that because they explained in detail what everyone, how everybody prepared and went over all of the tests, including Duolingo, which some of the universities in the US have started accepting, and it doesn't cost as much as TOEFL and IELTS. So I'd recommend watching that video before maybe you make a decision and book your test.
And just one more thing, there are also like waivers for several universities. So you can provide some document, you can provide your mark sheet, or you can just write to them asking for a waiver. And many times they oblige.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other question is, if I get GRA or GTA in my master's program, do I still need to show the fund for study visa?
I think maybe Sarah can answer the question because I did not take these exams. It was not, yeah, not an option
Uh,
for me.
I didn't have to give GRA or GPA either. So yeah, I like mine was a fully funded PhD, so I really didn't have to show any funding documents for study visa.
Yeah, I had to show the funding, but I had scholarship most of them, and it was covered by the same. But I'm not very sure of the GRE or anything. But I think anyways for your I-20, which is I think no, I think like standard for like any US college, I think you'll have to show the funds both for your tuition fee and plus for your living expenses. And normally they give you this amount that you have to show during visa application.
And for PhD, because my acceptance letter mentioned how much stipend and what my tuition fee would be, which would be covered by the university, I didn't really have to show any funds. So yeah, I didn't even have to give a GRA.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think if your contract for the GRE or GTA before you apply, if you have a contract before you're applying for the visa, and in that contract they tell you how much they're paying you for how much time, I think that can be a supplement to the whole expense. So you'll have to show that you're able to when you apply for a visa, you need to show that you have enough money to pay the tuition fee and the living expense. And if you're on a scholarship, then sometimes the scholarship letter is sufficient, or the university gives a letter to say that, we'll be covering these costs. And so then you don't have to show any additional document to show that you have the funds. But if you have some contracts in advance that can show how much they're paying you, so that can be one part of the document, but you'll still need to show others to say that what are the other sources through which you're covering everything else. So who's, like, for example, um how are you paying the tuition fees and things like that. So um I think that's usually required. So we have another question, which is, how do I fund my education at NWU, which is Northwestern University, I'm guessing, when the university doesn't give TA-ship or research assistantship for master's programs? So I guess generally like scholarships for master's programs. I guess, Lokesh, if you have any general advice on finding funding.
Yeah, one more thing which a lot of people are not aware. So I think every normally state, they have their own scholarship policies. So, for example, Rajasthan government last year had this scholarship called Rajiv Gandhi Excellence Scholarship, which was not really known to a lot of people. And I think this year, I think since the government has changed, so I'm not very sure of how it will go now. But it was there for the last 2 3 years. And so initially they had 100 students for this scholarship. Then they increased it to I think 200. And the criteria was simple. If your family income is less than 10 lakh rupees per year, then you get a scholarship. And I think they also had specific slabs: 5 lakhs, 8 lakhs, or 10 lakhs. And then you get only tuition fees and no funding. And I think for the maximum was 50 lakh scholarship per year, month, like yearly, that you can get. And it was also for top 100 or top 50 QS university ranking. So keep a check on that. And then there are also some of the NGOs which give you scholarship, which can be of two types: simple scholarship, and then can also be loan come scholarship. For example, in the US, no, so in Maharashtra, Mumbai, there's a one NGO. I have a separate list which I can share with EduAccess separately, which I made for me. But there's one NGO which gives you some 5 lakhs or something for scholarship. So if you do not get a scholarship from the university, then you have then you apply for a lot of places, not necessarily from the known funders. For example, Tata and all these people, they also give you scholarship. But then there are also some NGOs and some state governments which also give you funding. So you should also look for that.
Yeah, thank you, Lokesh. That's really helpful. Just to add that you'll have to one see if the university is willing to give any fee waiver, but if not, then look for external opportunities like Lokesh mentioned. And we've done workshops again. I feel like I'm plugging our workshops all the time. But we've done a bunch of workshops on these scholarship opportunities, and we're also going to be doing more. So do keep a lookout on our Instagram and LinkedIn to see all of the workshops that we do. So all of the so Casey Kamal, which is again a I think part-time like half loan, half scholarship, and in Lax is also going to open their application soon. So there are a bunch of opportunities for which you can apply if you already have an offer. And I'd say just keep a lookout.
And one more thing. Some of the universities also have their own anonymous scholarships, which are not normally known to everybody. So, for example, in the case of AUWCL, my university, American University, Washington College of Law, they have some scholarships called anonymous scholarship, where some of the funders for the alumni space they give some funding every year, but you have to ask them specifically that, hey, I read about this thing, or or I heard from somebody else. If you can help me out, or if you can just let me know, I can apply. So just keep that in mind. And same is also true for I think Oxford, because Oxford, some of the colleges have their own scholarships separately. And if you're not aware of the same, we often miss out on the same, like I did. So keep a check on that.
Thank you, Lokesh. I know there's some questions still in chat, but I'll go to Shefali, who has their hand raised. So Shefali, do you want
Shefali, do you want? Sure, yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
So I just got done with my applications. I've applied for masters in public administration, and I was just wondering, like, I'll now start my research for scholarships, like apart from the internal ones which these universities will offer. What's the best approach to research what scholarships are available? I mean, is it a simple Google search, or is there any strategy which I should use while researching?
Sata, you can answer, then I can go maybe.
Mm. Is this for US masters?
Yes, yes, US.
Um, okay, I can. Could you mute yourself, please, because I can hear myself. I don't really have much idea about masters in scholarship uh in the US. Sorry, I don't think I'll be able to answer that.
Uh, I think I may have some answers on that front. So no, you can, yeah. So there can be three ways you can go with the same. First go with the normal Google query, and then go with the specific university basis, and then third can be specific. Can be, for example, if you want to, and again I'm talking about law specifically, or like other social sciences. So normally they also get some funding every year. For example, I got scholarship because I got, so at that in 2021 there was a scholarship called Arcadia Fellowship. So this PIJIP got funding at that year, and that's how I got the scholarship. And it was I think only for 2 years. So first go like very broadly, then check the specific college courses, and then check specific centers if they have any specific funding on, and like and like if they open up. So if sometimes you may not get scholarships, but you'll get fellowships. So check if they can, because some fellowships can, like also include your tuition fees plus your RShip position or TShip position, so they can cover it. For me, there was there was just one fellowship position that year, but they gave me partial funding because I was the finalist. So it can also be true for your case. So just keep a check on that. But so
I
start with yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'll just add on to Lokesh's point. Another thing that I would have followed, whatever universities you have applied, have a look at the graduate students enrolled in that program. And you could also reach out to them and figure out if there is any external funding that they had applied. So that would be a really helpful source. That's how I was able to figure out an extra funding for a exchange program that I did. So that's really helpful if you reach out to existing graduate students of that program.
Sure, thank you.
All right. Duran.
Hi. So I wanted to ask about PhD. So I'm currently pursuing my master from Azim Premji University, and I want to go. I plan to directly go for a PhD, but I'm not sure if that is a good idea. Like, should I have an experience or not? Like, does that help? And secondly, because I think you're pursuing your PhD from the US. So how is pursuing PhD from US different from UK?
Okay. Answer your second question first, like difference between UK and US PhDs. If you want like a detailed answer for this, we did a session on US PhDs, and Ms. You can just share the link. That will give you a brief idea. But just to like explain in brief, UK PhD follows a different timeline where you will actually expect to have a project in mind, and you'll start working on a project as soon as you join the your PhD program. Whereas in a US PhD, you'll have to do 2 years of coursework, and then you will after qualifying the exam, then you'll be working on your thesis. So that's the difference. The timeline also is much longer. It's a 5 to 6 year PhD program in the US, whereas in UK it's a 3 year program. And the good thing about the US is that it's a fully funded program. So if you're accepted, you are accepted with funding. Whereas in the UK, you'll have to apply for separate funding in addition to getting an acceptance. So you need to figure two things. And could you repeat your first question again, please?
I was asking, is it a good idea to go for a PhD directly after masters, or do you feel like one should go for some job experience or research experience and then go for it?
No,
Because
you
my
can.
curriculum is very strong, like
Yeah, your
yeah, because my curriculum has a number of research projects and field visits as well. That is why.
Yeah, if your curriculum you have research experience, then that's great because research experience is really counted while you're applying for a PhD. So it's not necessary that you should have work experience. There are a lot of people who apply directly after their undergrad too, provided that it is considered equivalent to a US bachelor's or master's or whatever their criteria is for applying for a PhD. So you don't really need to worry. However, I would still suggest that you should either get a publication or you should have some teaching experience if you can, because that really helps while you're applying for a PhD in the US. Teaching experience really helps. If you don't have a publication, that's absolutely okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Since you're doing a PhD in Europe, do you have any insights on why you didn't choose the US?
Yeah, it is difficult to get funding in the US for law specifically. This is one question, and I came here for the professor. So I got into Oxford, and I also got into here. And Oxford gave me partial funding, and they gave me full funding. The first reason, and also the professor, and came here, and I also have more leverage to work, and I have more funding here to work on a couple of other things as well in Sionspor. And also, one common solution for PhD people is if you can publish something on your field, on the topic that you're already working on, it will be nice when you come here, not in terms of your CV but also in general about talking to people. Example, if you have some of your blogs published or like papers published on similar like lines, or then if when you come here you can talk to some like other PhD candidates or some other college people who are working on similar things. So it's good for both for your CV and for others also, because PhD is also about your contacts, except besides your work, because you also get to talk to people, like discuss their ideas and things like that. So it's also useful in both the ways. And also, yeah, one more thing, yeah, in Paris, my minimum, yeah, like you get contract for 3 years, and maximum it can be 6 years, but it can also go beyond 6 years. And the same is not true for Oxford, I believe. When I was checking it, I think it's maximum 4 years, so you get some more leverage here.
Yeah, I'd also say that when you're applying for a PhD, it doesn't matter where you go. I think funding is definitely an important factor when deciding which universities to pick, and the supervisor. And two things when picking your supervisor. One is, of course, whether they're doing the work that you're interested in doing, but also more generally, if you are able to speak to people who might know them, or like are able to reach out to their supervisees. Are they like good as supervisors? Because some really big names just don't have time for their supervisee. So these are important things. So that whole process will take some time. And if you feel like I would say, because the PhD is such a big commitment, you should take your time before deciding to do it and before you pick your project. So if you feel like during your master's you're not getting time to do it, I would say definitely take maybe a year off, whether it's by doing part-time work and figuring this out. But before, I think you need to take some mental time, like you need to figure out whether you're ready for a PhD and whether you actually want to do it. Because once you're in it, it's a big commitment, and you don't want to have doubts. I mean, doubts will always come up, but still, I'd say just think about it before you decide.
So I just add one more thing if possible. So there's one more option that you can also go for, which I was also looking at. So after your masters, you can also go for some fellowship for 1 or 2 years. Because, for example, let's say if somebody's working on law or let's say health, they can go to WHO or WIPO or WTO, and they can do a long-term internship, which can so where you can also get paid. You can also have connections, your LORs, and also some like research work, and then you can apply for PhD. So it will be easier to get into the same without like if you have not done the same. So it is like so it's also one of the ways you can do it. And also if not for the let's say the central organizations, you can also look at some university, go for a fellowship, and then you can also have your you can also make your way for PhD in the same college by going for a fellowship. So it can also be true.
Great. If that's all, Duran, I'll move to other questions.
Yeah, thank you. This was very helpful.
Okay, great. And I'd also suggest just looking at the workshop that we did on PhD applications, because there we had speakers from Australia, Europe, UK, and US. So it might help get an idea of what application requirements are across these countries and what actually happens. So there's a question in chat. LLM being a non-STEM program, is it better to consider other master's programs if one is considering working in US after master's?
Yeah, visa is a big issue in the US, I know. So yeah, if you are interested in some course which has coinciding elements, then you can also, of course, you should go for some STEM based, like some course which is a part of STEM in one way or other. For example, I know one course in like I know some courses in AUW, like in American University, which are more of management courses. For example, sustainable management and climate, and these, which can also fall in the category of let's say social sciences, but they also have this angle of management and these things. So you can also it can be part of both STEM and this thing. But yeah, but LLM will also will only give you 1 year this OPT experience, so you can only work 1 year. So if you can find a course which is coinciding elements, like the one that I just like give an example of, then of course like you should go for that to get a job, like to secure a job. Otherwise, there are like it's difficult.
Thank you, Lokesh. So there's a comment on English language test, which is Harvard doesn't allow IELTS, only TOEFL, and Columbia often gives waiver. So again, just to say that, have a look at the website of the university and department before you make a decision. There's another question on scholarships for LLM, but I think Lokesh already covered this extensively. So I don't think we need to repeat that. The other question is, what does a remote doctoral program from a US university look like? So, does anyone have any thoughts on that? So, I'm guessing like a part-time PhD, maybe, I don't know.
I don't have much idea about an online or a remote doctoral program. From what I know, students are expected to be here, and I'm also not sure about the viability of a remote or a doctoral program, like how good it is, and whether our run or a university with a good ranking is offering that.
I know that in the UK there are part-time PhDs, but it's also because PhDs are only 3 years, 3 to 4 years. So if you do it part-time, then 5 to 6 years is all you take. But in the US, since it's already a much longer project, I don't know what a part-time PhD would look like. Again, I'd say see which universities offer and what their coursework looks like, and if they and how many months in a year, or how many years do they require you to actually be in the US? Then there's a question on PhD interviews. How do you prepare for that? Are there any recurring questions? Just generally, if you have any tips and anecdotes that could be useful.
Okay, so that really depends on which discipline you are applying for, because I didn't have I didn't have to appear for any interview, but like a general idea that I have about interviews from those who have given is that you should have knowledge about the project that you have pitched. Whether it is in the form of a proposal or a statement of purpose. You could also talk about your research experiences and like how your background has shaped your research interest, and why that particular professor or that department is a good fit for you, why you chose that particular university, and what exactly are your future plans with respect to what you're going to do after you're finished doing a PhD. And a good grip, like they might also ask you questions with respect to your research areas, so you should have a fair amount, like a good idea about what you're talking about, the proposal and your research areas, like who the good top scholars are, whose work you're inspired from or you draw from for your project.
Yeah, if I may add something. For me, I had a specific interview for my funding for the PhD, but it was mostly about my own research work. So I had to present my the main gap of my literature that I identified, my specific claims, and the importance of my research. So I'll say the simple thing, like if you go with this, if you have an interview for for your proposal, I'll say go very specifically about like what's the gap, what are your arguments, and if you see any problems in your argument, just state that. That say this is my primary argument, and I still have to develop the same. And third can be what is the importance of research, and how do you plan to fill this gap using your arguments. So what's the methodology? So be very clear about that, and make it like very clear about a specific part. Like, example, this is my gap, this is my argument, this is the like benefit of the research, and then say, okay, this is still being developed, so I may not have all the answers, but this is the one that I generally have. And also, if you can look at your debate or your literature, and I've somewhere in my bike, I'm thinking about law in general. So look at your research outside law as well, if you're working on the same. So nowadays colleges prefer interdisciplinary research, especially in Sciences Po and in colleges in Europe. So yeah, go with that.
Great. I'll take one set of questions and then move to the people who've raised their hand. So, the first question is, does one need to have a research topic in mind while applying for a master's slash PhD? Could you suggest how one can find a research topic? How, after doing bachelor's for 3 years, is one eligible to apply for a PhD program in the US directly? It might be helpful if you let us know what background you're from, like what disciplinary background you're from. Maybe we can give you then more specific advice. Um, Economics. So, Sarah, Lokesh. So you're on mute.
Yeah, what was the first question? There were three questions.
So one is, do you need to have a research topic in mind while applying for a master's, PhD, or a PhD? Could you suggest how one can find a research topic?
Well, yeah, again, I think again depends on the funding game. If you specifically target specific funding in a university, then of course you have to mention, like you should mention ideally some broad idea of what you want to work. It should not be very specific, but because it will of course change. But for example, like when I was applying for Arcadia Fellowship, I specifically mentioned my research, interest in research, like right to research, and how I worked on the same, how I published on the same, and how I'm going to work on in the same and lead in my LLM. So do mention that. And same the case of, I think, like if you're targeting specific center which you think has funding, like specifically mention their funding, then of course go with that. And also like specific like programs, like for example, if you apply for a human rights program, then they have their specific separate kind of funding or professors. So even if you do not go for the funding specifically, so even for the purpose of admission, at least try to mention some broad topic that you want to develop. If not want to work, let's say develop, because like normally it is advisable to to show your work, or like how your work coincides with some other professors' work in the university, just to give them idea of why it is important for you to go to this college. That's why it is like it will be like helpful for you.
For a PhD, you do need to have a research topic in mind while applying, because that's what you'll be mentioning in your statement of purpose or your proposal. And you should also have like what kind of questions you're interested in, what are the research gaps that you wish to fulfill. You do not need to have very specific questions in your statement of purpose, but you should have a broad project and very broad questions in mind, saying that okay, you're interested in this. That really helps, and it's not necessary that you do end up working on it, because it's a 5-year PhD program. During your coursework, obviously your project is bound to change, but they want to uh, get an idea that you can think like a researcher, you have idea about how to go ahead with research. So yeah, having a research topic, like it is going to be a substantial part of your statement of purpose. So you need to have a research topic. And how could you find a research topic? I would say, based on your discipline, that really depends on what you exactly are interested in. And then you should read up about it. You should look up like what scholars have written about it. What is whether you can look at it from a different perspective, or there's a different perspective that you're interested in which hasn't been explored, and you would want to work around it. I would say read journals specific to your discipline. uh, and yeah, that would be really helpful. Read the work of people who are working on your research interest, areas of your research interest. That will give you a fair amount of idea, like how you could go ahead with a research topic. And I think there are also specific, like depending on whether you're applying in the UK or US, there are specific websites where people publish or upload their thesis or final dissertation. So you can also look that up and see what kind of research is being done at what universities, what kind of research has already been done, and yeah, how you can go about it.
Yeah, I have one top, like you can also add, for example, also if you are like if you're looking for a specific topic, also look at your own country's status about the specific topic. And again, I'm talking more about social sciences. So if you're talking about data privacy laws, or gender issues or things like this, or like any other topic, look at your own like the geographic status of the of countries, like reports and background, like how this issue is like being shaped and what is happening in the country. Like it will help you specify your topic and also have like chances of locating the gap more clearly.
Great. The other part of the question was, after doing bachelor's for 3 years, is one eligible to apply for a PhD program directly in the US?
You need to have a degree equivalent to a US bachelor's or a US master's, depending on the criteria of the PhD program. So you really need to, I think you will have to do either a diploma or another master's to be considered equivalent to a US bachelor's, because I did an undergrad and a master's, and that was considered equivalent to a US undergrad and not a master's. And another thing that I would suggest that one should be careful about when applying for a PhD program is that you should look at what exactly the eligibility is. Sometimes many PhD programs will accept you with an equivalent US bachelor's, whereas many would expect that you have an equivalent US master's, which is not equivalent to an Indian master's. So write to the universities and ask, like, usually it's specified on the website, but if it's not clear, it's always better you write to them and ask them what their criteria is. Uh, so yeah, that's important.
Great. Shakti, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Thanks. Hi. So my question is on a master's in law. A lot of these universities in the US ask for two academic references. So if you're not someone coming directly from an undergraduate degree and you have work experience in between, do you have any advice on how to go about that? And also, is that fairly normal for universities in US?
As far as I know, I think Oxford is the only college I think which specifically mandate having two academic LORs in law for BCL course. And I'm not very sure of any US college which mandate you to have two academic reference letters. I think you can submit one reference letter and you can submit the other one as your this like employer's letter. I think it should be completely fine. It should not be an issue because it is often the case that, so for example, somebody is doing masters after a long period of time, then it is high chances that the person may not be able to have a same academic LOR. So you can always justify the same, and you can send them a letter saying that, hey, I've done my UG a long time ago, and that's why I'm submitting one professional and one this thing. But I think it should not be an issue, I believe. And also number of LORs that they have specifically mentioned. Like if they have asked for maximum 5 LORs, then you can just submit one or two this one and one or two that one. So if you have more number of LORs, then I think it will be easy for you to also have like divulged in LORs.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So there are a few more. I'm picking the ones that I feel like we've not discussed at all. And so can one start the process of applying for a PhD program in the US or discuss interest in applying for the PhD with professors while pursuing a master's?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Do get in touch. This is something that people do not do. Do get in touch with potential supervisors, because many times those people, those professors might be in the admission committee or might be looking to supervise people. So reaching out really helps. And since there are a lot of applications, so if they speak to you, show interest in your work, schedule a meeting, that is usually seen as a good sign that they are taking interest in you and sort of gives an edge over other applications because they've already spoken to you. So, but that does not necessarily mean that it will turn into an acceptance. So, be conscious of that. But do consider reaching out to professors and supervisors. However, what I would suggest is keep in mind the timeline when you're reaching out. So, if the application deadline is in December, an ideal time to reach out to people would be end of August, September, October, and even like early November. And that's fine. Just don't do it in January when the application deadline is in December.
Great. Nabila, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hi. I'm so sorry if I have missed the answer and that it was already answered. My question is for Lokesh. Lokesh, I have applied for masters in law, and I'm waiting for my for the result. And I'm in the process where I'm trying to figure out what are the scholarship options that are available, because since the university that I've applied to does not have a lot of funding options. And the second thing is that there has been like almost 4 to 5 years since I've been into practice, and there is this huge gap from academia. So this is something that I'm going through, where I'm thinking how to prepare myself personally for an academic program, like how to be in that space where I can where I can go again to college. So that is one thing I have in mind.
Yeah. Okay. For this, I'll start with the one. I think Misbah has already answered the question that there are a lot of scholarship like that you can simply check. So I think EduAccess also has a specific talk on that. Just check that. But generally, if, for example, if you apply to the US, then just normally see scholarships in the US. Then which state you are based in, see if the government of this state has any specific scholarship. For example, like Rajasthan has one called Rajiv Gandhi Excellence Scholarship. And also some of the NGOs, local NGOs, like which may not be very famous all over India, but they may also have some level of scholarship. So you can also target that. About the second question, I think I've not worked, like I've not practiced at all. I was doing my law and then I did my LLM and now doing my PhD. So I didn't really have any chance of experiencing this practical law life in general. But I think once you go there, I think it is like, because in LLM like thing, you'll get a lot of other things as well. It's like it's not only about you studying or you like joining classes every day. Like there are a lot of like other activities like as well, and there are also internship opportunities as well there. So, and also in the US, I think some universities like I had the option of extending my LLM in 3 semesters. So maybe you can convert your 1 semester as your externship. So for the whole semester, you can work with some firm or somewhere, and you can also do your and you can have less of your this thing coursework. So there are ways that you can manage there. It is not just about you studying or studying a lot, but you can also manage it with with other things. Externship can be one, or cultural events are there, other things, internships, other programs. So I think it will be nice overall. Should not be much issue.
Okay, just one follow-up question. I am based in Delhi, and if I want to see what are the scholarship options available by NGOs or state funding something, so should I start now or should I wait for the results first? Should I have
No,
an
no,
offer first?
start now.
Okay.
As soon as possible. Yeah, you can. And because some NGOs may not have specific application portals, so you have to send them email and ask them. Because I just know this. I just know one NGO like this, which is in Mumbai, and the requirement is that they give you loan come scholarship, and you should be based or like you should be residents of Mumbai or Maharashtra or something. Then you will be like then I think you'll be eligible for the scholarship. So I think start doing it now as soon as you can.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Great. Noman?
Thank you, ma'am. I had one doubt regarding WES evaluation. So, in one of the university that I applied to, they had mailed me that my application is in process, and to further like give a decision, so they need a WES evaluation report for my application. So then they gave me some days to do it, and I submitted my WES evaluation. So I had one doubt that what is the time like. I'm not exactly sure that what is the timeline for this validity of the WES report. Like for how much time can I use the same as report? And another question was that I have a 4-year bachelor's program, and currently I'm doing a MRES program in India. So, like this MRES program, would it be equivalent to US masters?
Does anyone have any experience with that?
I had not experience for the same.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't really have any experience with WES. But with respect to your second question regarding the eligibility criteria, I think the evaluation might be helpful, or I would suggest it directly write to the university, explaining with your mark sheets and explaining your uh, like undergrad, where you did your undergrad and the course that you're currently pursuing, and ask them if that would be eligible, considered equivalent to a US master's or not.
Yeah, so actually in the because I have currently just 1 semester of my master's certificate, because my master's course is MREA, so it's 1 semester of coursework and then 3 semester of research work, and the whole 3 semester will be evaluated at the end, like in June. Will have my final thesis submission, and then I'll get the report. So when I submitted it to West, so they had mentioned my bachelor's as a US 4-year degree program equivalent, and then for the masters they had written their 1 semester coursework. But in the from my university also they have given me letter that so I am currently in my 4th semester, and I'm currently in continuous assessment mode, and I have passed the 2nd and the 3rd semester, but transcripts cannot be provided at this time because it's continuous assessment. So I don't think that will impact anything in the application.
Yeah, so for that, what I would suggest is that application should be sent to the graduate coordinator of the program that you're applying in. And that really depends on like the personal preference of the university. But that should be helpful, because I was sort of in a similar situation for a scholarship that I had applied but that was also not in the US, it was in France. And they did consider my application because the final results were not out. So there was an application written by the director showing that I had fulfilled all the formal credentials for the required for the program. That was considered. So yeah, I would say reach out to the graduate coordinator of the program that you're applying at and send them this application.
Yeah, like my application has already been submitted, but they gave this WES evaluation requirement like they mailed me 15 days back that to further reach a decision, they need the WES evaluation report. Then and as you discussed in this one question, you discussed about the eligibility. So I'm not sure if my MRES program is equivalent to US Masters.
If I may, so the WES evaluation is something that US universities require after you receive an offer or after you've submitted your application. It's a third-party service for them to verify your transcripts. And again, I also don't know the details of it, so I'd suggest that you send us an email to info@projecteduaccess.com with your specific queries, and we have a few mentors who've gone through this evaluation and they might be able to answer your questions better than us.
Thank you.
So we are our time is up. It's been an hour, but I'm just gonna very quickly just take some questions that we've not answered before. For other questions that are pending in chat, it's because we've already addressed them during the session, or we've addressed them in one of our workshops that we've already conducted, the links for which have also been sent in chat. So regarding PhD applications or master's applications for the US. So the question is if I've already done a master's and if the PhD coursework looks like a master's in the US, does it make sense to then apply for a PhD in the US considering that I have a master's, and if that's
Yeah, so for that really depends on what kind of a master's, like if it's similar, if it's a research-based master's and you're pretty confident about the project that you want to work on, then I would suggest like you can skip a US PhD program. Like I can talk about my experience. I did a master's as well, but my master's was a very production-oriented master's. It was in journalism. And I really wanted some more research background, and I wanted that additional coursework. And I think a coursework in the US also sort of bridges the gap between the master's and an MPhil that one does before pursuing a PhD. So like the coursework was really and is very helpful for me. But if you're very confident about the project that you want to work on, because from the very vague idea that I have with respect to a UK PhD is that when you join the program, they'll ask you like, what are the chapters that you'll be working on? What are the specific questions that you'll be working on? Whereas in a US PhD, they'll give you more flexibility with respect to that because you have 2 years of coursework, then prelims, and then you start working on your PhD. So if you're very confident about your project, then yeah, you can skip a US one. But I would say that consider the coursework as sort of a bridging the gap between the master's and a PhD through an MPhil. That's my interpretation of it.
Great. There was a question about PhD in film studies. So I'm linking another workshop that we did on graduate programs in creative arts, where we had PhD and master's students who come from like different creative arts or film studies and so on. So I'd again suggest just have a look at that recording, because there you might find answers that we may not be able to answer given that we're not from the field. There was a question on Fulbright scholarship. Again, we discussed the Fulbright scholarship in our workshop on master's applications to the US, and we had a Fulbright scholar on the panel, so it might be better if you have a look at that recording. There's a timestamp as well that you can directly go to the section where the Fulbright scholarship is covered. The timeline for the Fulbright scholarship is actually very different to other scholarships, and we are likely to do a session on Fulbright as well sometime soon. So I'd say keep a lookout for that. I'll just take one last question. Is it better to go for a PhD after completing OPT and CPT, or directly to go after masters from the US, as the work during CPT or OPT may not be exactly related to the project that one takes up during the PhD program?
I don't have much idea about OPT or CPT. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't think I'll be able to answer that.
Yeah, again, OPT and CPT depends upon your STEM on STEM course. But if your OPT period, which I'm considering will be minimum at least 1 year, and if you want to do your PhD in something else, then I think it will make less sense for you to just stay for 1 year and work on something which is not related to PhD and then go for PhD. It may impact negatively for the thing. Otherwise, if you can show a link between your PhD work and this one work, it's good. And for some people it can also be financial reasons for just work for 1 year. So it is not something which will have a very negative impact, but it's advisable to directly go for the PhD if your work is not related, if your OPT work is not related to your PhD. Does this help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Great. With that, I will end the session. There is another question on the GRE, but we've actually done a workshop on this a while ago, and in fact, there was a question This was discussed quite a lot. So please do have a look at the recording of this workshop. Um, I've sent a few links in chat. So these are links to the recording of our workshops that we've done this year. So they're all on our YouTube channel. So I've put a link to the YouTube channel. The second is on our website. So last year we conducted a bunch of workshops. So you can have a look at those as well. So for a lot of scholarships whose application deadline is yet to open, when we did workshops last year, you can have a look at that. But we'll also be doing them again this year. But in case you just want to get a sense of what all might be available for you to apply to, you can have a look at all of those. Since there were a few questions about research proposals and writing that document, we've developed a few guides on writing university applications. So those include writing your CV, your SOP, your person statement, and your research proposal. So I'd again say just have a look at mm, um, the guide, and that might be a good place to start. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at info@projecteduaccess.com. And we'd be happy to take any questions if you aren't a mentee with us. But if you are a mentee with us, then you know where to reach out to us. With that, thank you so much, Sarah and Lokesh. These were a lot of questions for an hour. So thank you for being so patient in responding to each and every one of them with so much detail. I'm sure it helped a lot of people who joined us and who will watch a recording of this session. And thank you for supporting Project EduAccess. And thank you everyone who joined us today. All the best with your applications, and I'll see you next week.
Yeah, all the best to everybody. Yeah. See you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you.